Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon. Inshallah, today we will continue in group 5A kan. Okay, so I think last last Tuesday, you all went for your Mendeley course. Okay, so I hope all of you are well aware of the software, able to use the software. So you have to use the software for the writing of your report, okay, your thesis. All right. So today I will share with you a little bit more of the literature review chapter, okay, which you are supposed to write and submit it soon. Okay. The due date of your literature review is on 5th of June. Okay, 5th of June, which is after your break. Okay, after your break, immediately after your break. Okay, your break is on the 26th, 27th of May, right up to 5th of June. Okay, so you're supposed to submit. You're required to submit your chapter 2 to me on the 5th of June. Okay, so literature review is in chapter 2. So we have done a few introductions on literature review, and in the previous two classes, Puan Azilawati or Dr. Azilawati has also talked to you about literature review, especially on the conceptual map literature review. So today I will share with you some a little more notes on chapter 2 chapter 2. Yep. Okay, so in literature review, I'm giving you some examples here about the contents of chapter 2. Okay, these slides I've already uploaded in my feature, so you can look at it when you have some free time. Okay, so before you start, chapter 2 has a few ways of writing it. Okay, few ways of writing it. But the most important section in chapter 2, or the table of contents or the flow, is how you want it to be, but basically is how I'm showing you some examples. So we start with the introduction, 2.1, then 2.2, overview of your research domain, then your research area. So you have to write down your research area, and then comparison of existing systems or application. And finally, the justification section, which is in 2.5. And finally, the summary of chapter 2. Okay, so chapter 2 begins with the introduction. So in the introduction, you must, in any chapter, be it chapter 2, 3, 4, or 5, you always have to begin the introduction section with in the previous chapter. Okay, so you always have to tell the reader what he or she has read in the previous chapter. Okay, this is to refresh the reader that what have you written, and just for him or her to have an understanding what has been already said in the previous chapter. Okay, so for any chapter, be it 2, 3, 4, and 5, in the introduction section, you have to begin with in the previous chapter. Okay, so in the previous chapter, this is 2.1, the introduction in chapter 2, you start by saying, in the previous chapter, the problem statement, scope, and the research objective of this project or study has been presented. So you can either choose the word project or study, or if some students want to choose thesis, it's also fine. Okay, but keep it standard. Okay, keep it standard. Don't write 1 minute you say project, and then the next minute you got the study, and then research, and then thesis. If you are using the word project from chapter 1, then maintain it until the end. Okay, maintain it until the end. Okay, so you say what are the key important points that we have presented in the previous chapter. You must always begin like this. In chapter 3, when you start writing about your methodology, again, you begin with, in the previous chapter, what has been explained in the previous section. Okay, Right. So in this chapter 2, first you start with an example is in the previous chapter, the problem statement, scope, and the research objective of this, okay, of this project has been presented, or this study has been presented. Building upon that foundation, this chapter focuses on a comprehensive review of the existing literature relating to the title of this project study. Okay, and then you continue by saying, referring to figure 2.1. Kenapa kita kata refer below? This is where you are going in your figure 2.1. This is where you are going to present the conceptual map. Okay, the conceptual map of your study, of your project. Okay, referring to figure 2.1, the conceptual map, or some students like to call it mind map of this project or study project lah, is presented and further explained in the subsequent subchapters. So first you present the overall conceptual map group. Okay, so you start by saying refer to figure 2.1. So when the reader reads chapter 2, begins to read chapter 2, he or she will first see the conceptual map. Okay, upon looking at the conceptual map, they will have an idea what are you trying to do in this project. Okay, what are you trying to explain in this chapter, right? So we begin by saying, now look at figure 2.1. Okay, so for figure, the title of the figure is below the diagram. Okay, below the table, okay, or below the diagram. Okay, that is figure. If you're presenting a table, okay, of a table, the title is above the figure. Oh, sorry, above the image or above the table, right? And you begin, if that is the first figure shown in that particular chapter, so that becomes figure 2.1. If you are in chapter 3 and that is the first figure, so you begin by stating figure 3.1, and then it moves on to 3.2, and then it moves on to 3.3, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's how you name the do the numbering for the figure. Okay, so this is how you write the introduction section. Next, in 2.2, you start by saying the research domain of this project is focused on your particular research domain. So I think Puan Azila or Dr. Azila has explained to you what is research domain. So research domain is the overall big picture of what you are going to do. If you are going to create a mobile apps for students in primary school, for example, then your domain will be education. Okay, if you're doing something a semantic analysis or things like that, then or something to relating to machine learning, then your machine learning is your domain, right? Then this domain has gained significant attention due to insert how important is this domain. Why is this education domain important? So you have to insert some significance and relevance. What is significance and relevant? Significant means that it's very important. Why is it very important? And why is it relevant to the latest, to the current way of teaching? Okay, if you're doing mobile application. So you have to insert the significance and relevance here, and has become a critical area for exploring advancement. The growing importance of insert research domain again has motivated researchers to investigate new approach, methods, and tools to tackle its challenges and opportunities. So what I've written here is just the introduction of subchapter 2.2. This is only the introduction section. Okay, the introduction section only. So if you begin, let's say your project tadi pasal mobile application, okay, so your domain is already known, education. So you have to first explain what is this education, what is done, what is the process done behind education. Okay, how does this education work? Okay, why is it important? Okay, how is education relevant to the current scenario? Okay, that is on the education part, the research domain part, right? And everything has to be based back to your conceptual map, because when I evaluate your chapter 2, I will refer back to your conceptual map, and you have to explain each box that you have presented in in figure 2.1, which is the introduction section. Okay. Next, once you have done with 2.2, you move to your research area. The area is more specific. Okay. Let's say you are doing education, but your area is more towards high school education, or STEM students, STEM students, or vocational students. So your area, what is your area? So you have to highlight there. So again, in the introduction section, okay, maybe I forgot to mention this. When we say overview, overview means is the introduction first. Okay, so before you start explaining something, explaining a subchapter, first you have to tell the reader, now what am I going to say? What is this 2.3 all about? Because you will have then you are going to have subchapter 2.31, subchapter 2.32, subchapter 2.33. So before you start writing your 2.31, 2.32, you have to tell the reader, now 2.3 is about what? So that's why we use the word overview, meaning to say what is this 2.3 or subchapter 2.3 about. Okay, so in this example I've shown you 2.3 is you want to tell the reader why is this project important, or which area does this project focus on. Okay, so here in this example I write down as this project focuses on the research area, okay, of the research area of what. So you in 2.1 is just saying the domain. Okay, this is the domain, but in this area, in chapter 2.3 area, we are going to say, okay, the area which I'm focusing is basic learning or early learning system. Okay, you're focusing on that because education is big. Education itself is a big scenario, it's a big problem, it's a big area. All right, that's the domain. But when you say that is the domain. But if you go down to the area, it could be for primary school, it could be for secondary school, it could be for dyslexia, all kinds of kids, okay, or it could be for old people, okay. So there are different types of area, and you are focusing why you need to focus on this particular area. That is also a question. So you have to insert significance and relevant as to why, kenapa you not focus on this particular area. Okay, the difference between significance and relevance is here. Relevance is more focused on the specific context, while significance looks at the broader implication and potential application of the technology. Significance means you have, why is this area more important? Why is this important? And how relevant is this area now? Okay, let's say online learning. So online learning now is very significant and it's relevant. Why is this relevant? Is because now, because of the one main reason is because of the pandemic, everyone is learning online, everyone is utilizing education online. So this is very relevant to the current scenario now, right? So that's why the next line here we say, as technology continues to evolve, it becomes imperative to explore novel approaches, methodologies, techniques in this area to harness its full potential. Okay, so because there is a relevance here kat sini, and the significance is also very high, that means it's good that if we can dig deeper into this particular area because of its significance and relevance. It's very significant now, okay, and is also very relevant now. So that is focusing more on subchapter 2.3. Right? In 2.4, this chapter is relatively simple. This assess or compares current system or application in the relevant domain stand study. Okay, let us say you are doing mobile application, so you want to see which system has already been developed and using what technique. Okay, what technique? Probably you can also include what year. Okay, and how was it done? Was it done using this, or what technique did they use? That is very, very important. And from these techniques, you will come up with some limitations. So these limitations is now to be addressed in your current system. So you want to see what was the problem in this system. System A, what is the problem? System B, what's the problem? So system C, which you are about to do, tries to help to solve the current problems which is handled by which occurs due to the previous system. Okay, and furthermore, this examination helps identify gaps and challenges that our research aims to address. So when you look at this comparison of the previous system, you find that there are certain gaps, certain challenges, and you wish to address this in your particular new system. Okay, it just so comparing the system, it gives you a foundation. What has there been available in the market? So that is very important. All right, let's refer to slide number 14 here. Okay, slide number 14 here. So slide number 14, this is what you are going to present in your chapter 2, 2.3, comparing the existing system and proposed system. Okay, so the table here is called the matrix table, and the title of this particular research is Mobile Application Education System. Okay, so you have to go through the literature, and you find that there are 3 systems, system A, B, C, which have been developed and uses different approach. Then you have to also highlight each system, what is the benefit or what is the advantage of this particular system. Next, based on that, you come up with some limitation. You read the journal, you find out what's the limitation, and finally, you propose a new approach using a new system that has higher strengths but reduces its limitation. Right? So this is what you are going to first show a figure or a table in chapter 2, 2.3 about the existing, comparing literature with the existing system and the proposed system. So based on this matrix table, we can see here that there are 3 systems that has been developed, and each system uses a different learning approach. One uses gamification, another one uses personalized learning, another one uses collaborative teaching. Okay, and what are the strengths, what are the advantages, and what? Can you all hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, boleh tak dengar suara saya?
Boleh, sir.
So this table shows you that there has been 3 systems that have been developed. What are the approaches? Okay, yang pertama pakai gamification. The second one uses personalized learning. Third one uses collaborative learning. What is the advantages and the limitations? And your proposed system uses AR, maybe what is the advantages, and maybe there could be some limitations as well. So all of these has to be highlighted and explained in detail, each one of them. Okay, so this table should be presented in chapter 2.3. Okay, so this is a very important section in your literature review itself. Okay, so 2.3, 2.4. Okay, finally, you already have all the, you already explained everything, you have already known, you have to justify. What is this? Why are you doing this? Why is it so important? So this is where you have to identify. Maybe you identify by saying that, okay, everything is good, but it costs more. Okay, so here in this example, I write in this subchapter, the justification of the proposed project is presented. Why was that? So these are the questions that you have to answer in this particular chapter. Why was the project developed? Was there an area which requires to study, or was there problems in a particular area? So in terms of cost, maybe the systems were there, it was good, it was everything, but the cost of the system is very high, so you want to develop a cheaper solution. Okay, this is an example of one of my previous students. He wanted to do something on cloud computing, right? So he says that although there are benefits of cloud computing adoption, there's also a gap, or there's also some problems regarding the cost of implementation. Okay, and then Furthermore, he also says there are some migration problem and utilization of the cloud services. So he wishes to come up with a cheaper cheaper solution to help to address the problems that has been highlighted in the literature. So this is also one point that you have to highlight in your particular subchapter as well. Okay, so this is the justification chapter. Okay, so once you have done the justification chapter, subchapter, you are going to do the summary chapter, which is 2.6. Again, 2.6 is just the summary. So what does the summary do? The summary does just summarize what have you presented in chapter 2, and you also have to have a short paragraph to explain to the reader now what is expected in the next chapter. Okay, so you must always end your summary section in each chapter by telling the reader, yes, we have ended chapter 2, but there is more to come. Please read on. Okay, it's something like you're telling the user, okay, what has been explained in chapter 2.5 and what is proposed, and furthermore, and what to expect in the next chapter. So you also need to highlight what is to be expected in the next chapter as well. All right, that is the justification chapter in subchapter in chapter literature review. Okay. Others are some paraphrasing examples. I've shown you here how to paraphrase them. Okay, and then we have also covered the synthesis part. Okay, synthesis is it's not more general. It's more focused as compared to summary. Summary merely highlights that, okay, how many people have said this, but there is no explanation of why people have done that. Okay, yes, people has, for example, losing weight. Yes, people have lost weight through running, cycling, swimming, but why is this important? Now that's where you synthesize the ideas from the previous chapters or from previous journals. Okay, then you have to have paraphrase where you change the wordings so that it's not merely you're copying, but you're just taking some ideas from what people have said and then building on that with your own wordings as well. Okay, so in chapter 2, you should at least have a lot. You are going to have a lot of literature, so please make sure you use Mendeley to keep track of all these all these research journal papers, and you can keep them in your Mendeley. And finally, when you present the thesis, when you print the thesis, you are going to include all of these journals. Okay, so in chapter 2, yes, you can have more than 5 journals, 6, 10, no problem, because you are supposed to read a lot. So by having more journals, at least you have some sort of a deeper understanding of your title. The problem with some students is they do not have deep understanding of their title. Okay, when you have deep understanding of your title, then it's difficult for you to continue or for you to do the literature reading. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so this is another example by another student of mine. She was using, or she's still developing, smart lighting system using light motion and brain sensors. Again, she has come up with the definition first. Okay, the overview. Okay, what to expect, definitions of concept, and then types of smart lighting system, and then you develop the development and implementation, and then you move on to key design considerations, strategies, and challenges. Okay, so these are additional points that may be required by your in explaining chapter 2. Okay, so here are some key designs, strategy, challenges, opportunities. Then you have the overview of the system itself, some case study, comparison, and finally the summary as well. Okay, so this is how she did it. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying it's right, but this is a way of explaining as well. This is fine as well. Okay, because you have to bring the user to understand what you're trying to do. So you have to start with the big domain, then you move on, examples, provide some examples where necessary, okay, and then you bawa to your research area, and then you compare all the systems which are available. Next, you justify. Now, I want to do this. Why do I want to do that? Is to address your domain and your area as well. So that also has to be done inside the justification chapter. Okay? That is all about chapter. Okay. Now, my question to you is, have you all gone, I know all of you have done your Mendeley, Mendeley course, so you should be able to keep track of all the systems, all your references, okay? Bear in mind, chapter 2 will require a lot of reading and how you want to synthesize or how you want to explain your particular chapter, okay? Chapter based on your title of the project. Right? Any questions so far?
No, sir.
All right. So can we agree? It's not can we agree? You have to submit your chapter 2 on 5th of June. No delays, no extra time this time. Make sure you give ample time to your supervisor for them to read your thesis or for them to read your chapter 2. Maybe you can give them at least 4 days before submission. Okay, 4 days before submission lah. Okay, tell them that you're going to submit chapter 2. Please ask their comments, or if you are able to do it at least once a week ahead of time, then you can also do that as well. Okay, do not send them the chapter about a day before ke apa lah. Okay, send them at least dalam 2-3 hari sebelum, so that they know or they can help to read and at the same time give you valuable comments and valuable insights regarding your chapter 2. All right. So since you have all no questions, thank you so much for attending this short class online. I'm sorry I cannot come to class today because I had Jamuan Raya and I'm very, very tired, and because of the heat, it was outside. It's very, very hot, so I'm very lethargic today. So that's why I chose to have this class online. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, and I wish you luck in your chapter 2. And please keep the dates in your calendar. Submission is on June 5th. Okay, and start using your Mendeley, and it will really help in your submission nanti lah. Okay, in your submission. All right. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih, sir.
Salam, sir.
Salam, terima kasih, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.